Good morning, everybody. I'm Brian Lassiter with Performance Excellence Network. Thrilled to host what is our third in an every other week series of webinars, helping leaders improve and today just sustain their business, their organizations. Pleased to be partnering with the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce. And Faith, maybe you can introduce yourself and offer a few remarks.
Thank you, Brian. Hi, everyone. My name is Faith Felion. I am the events manager at the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce. And this session today is one of the sessions that we partner with the Performance Excellence Network as far as our business education series. So we're thankful to be able to go virtual with this particular event. With that, we'd like to thank our city partners, Maplewood, Roseville, Shoreview, as well as our presenting sponsor, Deluxe, our corporate sponsors, Comcast, UPS, our contributing sponsors, Highway Federal Credit Union, the St. Paul Port Authority, Sunrise Banks, and the Chamber, with our events, we really work to support the East Metro area, and we're delighted to be here today.
Thanks, Faith, and thanks to the Chamber. We had done two of these live together, and it was kind of fun when you had completely blended audiences, when about half the crowd were Penn members and half the crowd Chamber members, and they could mix and mingle. Someday we'll do that again, but glad to still bring great ideas, great content in a virtual setting.
Yes.
So I mentioned this is the third of our every other week webinars. We also host some workshops. This is the upcoming lineup of Penn events. In 2 weeks, we'll do another webinar on maintaining productivity despite the ever-changing work environments. Some folks are all virtual, some folks are in the office. Many organizations are blended or hybrid right now. So Jan Lehman, who actually spoke for us a couple of months ago at one of our partner events, has some new content on how to manage the maintain productivity in very different work environments. June 2nd, we have an online workshop, which is a deeper dive into the speaker we had a couple of weeks ago, introducing tools to help shift strategy, reprioritize, and kind of change on the fly, given all of the changes we're facing. And then many of the Penn members, at least on the line, are familiar with SIT, Systematic Inventive Thinking. There's an Israeli-based company that Penn has flown over every year, once or twice a year, from Israel to teach their concepts for innovation and problem solving. They've agreed to do it online in a series of workshops. So there are 3 half-day workshops in July. And our conference is in September for those that haven't heard that news. So real briefly, some context. Those that are familiar with this picture, this is the Baldrige framework. I know many of your organizations on the line are not using it officially as your management system. Although if you look at the 7 buckets, they do represent what any organization is trying to manage. And so today, I think most of our comments will be in the strategy or operations categories, although we'll hear a lot about leadership and workforce and so forth. But regardless if you're trying to improve your business or today just sustain it, I think the concepts that you're going to hear from these 3 stories today will help your organization succeed. So here's who we're going to hear from, and the format will go like this. We're going to start with Susan Carey Hansen, who's the CEO and co-owner of PGC. And she'll talk for around 10 minutes, plus or minus, about what her business has been doing the last couple of months to pivot through these times. I think you've got some really interesting things, Susan, to share, and I'm looking forward myself to hearing some of your insights. We'll stop and we'll get some Q&A from the audience. So there is a Q&A button probably at the bottom of your bar. It might be on the side, depending on how you're set up. So type in your questions, and you don't have to wait until she's finished. Type them in, and I'll be looking at them. Faith will too, Susan. And then when we come to the end of your remarks, we'll entertain a few questions. Then we'll move on to Jim and his colleagues from Standard Iron and Wireworks. Do the same thing of 10, 12 minutes for your story, and then some Q&A, and then we'll wrap up with Ying Sa, who's the CEO of Community CPA. And she'll do the same thing, and she has some different insights. So I think combined, the 3 stories will really tell a more complete story about what businesses and organizations could be doing today to sustain themselves and position themselves for future performance. So with that, I'd like to get rolling. And Susan, you are first on be on deck. So if you can pull your slides up, we'll get rolling. Welcome, Susan. Thanks for sharing.
It says I can't share while
Yeah, well,
Chamber.
while I am. There you go. I told you it'd be an informal conversation. There you go. Now try it. Perfect.
Good morning. I'm Susan Carey Hansen. Thanks to Penn and the St. Paul Chamber for hosting this event today. And I am actually not in Greece. That's free from Google. I'm actually in my attic office on East St. Paul Metro. So Faith, I live in St. Paul and I work in Edina. I'm the 50% owner of PGC, a 70-year-old privately held company. We manufacture precision component parts that perform sealing, protection, dampening, and stabilizing functions for products in the defense, automotive, medical, electronics, and construction industries, to name a few. Talking about customer need, us, like most manufacturers, have to keep an eye on both our legacy business and serving their orders while adjusting and navigating customer requests for new parts. We've had 4 different customers ask us to make parts that actually serve the COVID-19 crisis. One of our applications engineers worked with an industrial customer to change their product from for use with sanitizing fluid, which is a much needed product. Don't know about the rest of you, but we've had our building professionally cleaned twice through Paul Davis Company for their services of professionally cleaning and sanitizing. It's an expensive endeavor. We did it proactively, not because we had any COVID cases. I just want to be able to sleep at night. So I wanted to make sure we've done everything we could to keep our staff safe. But one of the applications engineers did work with the customer and the rest of the team for a quick turnaround situation. So the team consisted of an applications engineer, account manager, estimator, manufacturing engineer, and they did, of course, have to use video conferencing because most of that staff has moved and had moved mid-March to remote work. Utilizing our 4D process, discover the problem, going from one type of fluid in the sprayer to sanitizing fluid, diagnose the problem, determine which materials will work as a gasket with sanitizing fluid, and understanding the feasibility of meeting the customer requirements to then develop the solution, which was what is the best manufacturing process to meet the customer's expedited request. A quote was developed along with a bill of material, job routing notes, and quality inspection information. The team utilized our customer-centric approach and met the customer's delivery date. We have a communicate, coordinate, and collaborate philosophy at PGC and expect staff to work quickly to support our customer-centric approach. This means not relying on email. Email is not your friend, it's a tool. But gather the staff together via video chat to solve challenges timely. With applications engineers and manufacturing both working on-site and remotely, the need for collaboration and communication has increased and also has allowed for respect of their mutual work. Manufacturing engineers now support AEs with prototypes. That was not the previous case. Manufacturing engineers have learned how often these prototypes are requested, as AEs previously handled all the prototypes outside of manufacturing engineer environment. We successfully completed the initial application quote and sample parts in 1.5 business days. We had to change our internal processes for obtaining new customer information and contact customer account manager information to the customers while staff were moving off-site to speed communication and response times. We did experience at PGC some customer hoarding, throwing in orders, these large OEMs, putting in their orders to assure that we would see and have the visibility of their order and maintain supply chain. We did have one of our largest supplier shut down for 2 weeks to furlough everyone. However, the product that they supply us is used in defense products, and we had to educate them. We've always given them the flow down of the information, but we had to educate them on the DPAS process, and they had to send that to their attorney, and they reopened up much more quickly because they had to satisfy us with parts that we needed. We also, a friend of mine also owns a company, and I'm in a business owner roundtable with her, and she had sent me a text saying, hey, we're making some parts for face shields. And I happened to show it to my husband, who's the other owner, and my husband's a very opportunistic and optimistic person. So we happened to call that company and said, hey, how's it going? And they said, well, we're swamped. And since that conversation, which was just a text message from Chris to me, we are now, by the end of the month, we'll have made 2.5 million foam parts for face shields that certainly are serving our first responders and healthcare system. For COVID-19 planning, so changing the topic a little bit, we started our planning free seminar from Disaster Recovery Institute on Thursday, January 30th. Our HR manager attended that session, and we quickly ordered everything they told us that would run into a supply chain problem. So we ordered hand sanitizer, wipes, and those things the end of January. It has been a bit of a struggle since then to get more product, but we have worked out, and we do have enough product at PGC. We immediately started a good hygiene campaign for all of our staff to focus on infectious diseases or viruses. We brought someone in on site to PGC to educate the staff in person about the difference between COVID-19 and the influenza. We also went through proper hand washing technique. These activities occurred prior to WHO announcing the pandemic on March 11th. At the same time, we categorized all of our staff by who was handling critical and time-sensitive work. We huddled with our management team daily for the first month after the announcement of the pandemic, and then we moved to twice-a-week huddles for operational purposes. We created an employee portal and tested our emergency call system with all of our employees. The second test netted 100% success, and we test that every other week now. In preparation for Minnesota's shelter-in-place order, we reviewed Washington State and Oak Park Heights along with Ohio's shelter-in-place, so we could understand what were the requirements. We instituted the CDC workplace guidelines, and our early response included a no handshake policy, canceled all on-site visitors, suspended business travel. We discussed what the staff needs were, and they asked us to change our time clock process because it was too slow and people were having to touch the machine. So we made adjustments there. We started remote work and to continue to refine our technology policies as we are AS 9100 certified and ITAR registered. We have revised our delivery processes in the receiving area for incoming shipments, and truck drivers now have limited access to that area. We instituted contactless United States Postal Service mail delivery, though my dog is disappointed about that because every day the mailman would give Max a treat, and he no longer gets that treat. We also have set up an contactless take takeout food service delivery for our staff that order takeout food. We closed one section of our building because that staff is working remotely, and we've limited access to our quality lab where the part inspections occur. The conference rooms have stated occupancy rates now, and we have tape on the floor where the chairs need to remain. Individual offices have visual reminders of tape where people can stand if somebody comes to your office to talk to you. Moving on to financial planning, we have had customers request longer payment terms, and we have requested that of our suppliers. No customer is excited to hear no, and no supplier is excited to have that request made of them. So we're trying to have our customers pay us as close to normal, and we're trying to pay our suppliers as close to normal. We immediately went into cash conservation mode and implemented reduced expenses. Oops.
Does that disrupt you there, Susan?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. I'll give it back to you if that's helpful. I just advanced it for you.
Thank you. I'm glad you did, because I should have allowed you to do that.
No, that's okay. You keep going then. You're doing great.
Okay. And so is it on the right slide? Thank you. Yeah. We did apply and receive an SBA PPP loan. However, we do expect that the forgiveness will only be about 60 to 80%, because it is very difficult to match up the timing of the funding from 4/14 to 6/30. So we have updated our cash model. We were previously looking out every week for 4 weeks. We are now looking out monthly for 6 weeks. We created a business sensitivity dashboard, which includes sales and marketing indicators, such as new part gross margin, new parts year to date, new leads, win-loss ratios, along with operational indicators such as the AR balance, cash receipts per week, bookings per month, total company backlog. We review this dashboard on a weekly basis. Overall, our company backlog has been strong, though it's dipped slightly in the last 2 weeks. We do anticipate that maybe over the summer months, we may see a dip in business. We're asking customers about their forecast and future ordering needs while looking at our supply chain viability and redundancies. We believe as a management team, now is not the time to relax any practices to fight COVID-19. We continue to focus our efforts on new applications and responding to our customers' requests for information or assistance. My hope is to avoid another disruptive outbreak and to support an improvement in our current economic situation. It is incumbent upon us to continue to promote safe work practices while continuously improving our processes for efficiency and effectiveness. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We have time for just a couple of questions. I see a couple coming in. Have you had to deal with collections? Is that a challenge with some of your customers?
We have had to deal with collections. We do fortunately have a full-time person, and he has had to change his work processes to almost 100% phone calls. People have been responding to phone calls. They haven't been responding to email.
That's interesting. That's a good technique. Thank you. How about communicating with customers in general to understand their trends and their future prospects and so forth? You mentioned a little bit of forecasting. Say more about that.
Our VP, John Bauer, has been working with sales and marketing, account managers in CSR, and they huddle twice a week and talk about customers. We had 2 large customers who had real misinformation about our current situation, what we were doing, Not sure how they got that information, but it is very important to pick up the phone call. Again, a lot of phone calling. People aren't reading emails, they're inundated with information. So we really had to work hard at picking the phone and talking to them directly. And some of them can give good forecasts and some cannot.
Yeah, great insight.
We have a question in the chat. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Faith.
We have a question in the chat. How was your sales process changed during this period? Have you adjusted your training metrics, et cetera?
Yes, everything has changed. I don't think, other than the building being in the same location, I'm not certain that there's anything that has gone unchanged. Our customers obviously don't want to meet face to face. However, our application engineers and new business development are now busier than they've ever been. Because they're working at home, they've taken out that transit time, and they have their numbers and productivity efficiency has increased. So they do a lot more work, and there are a lot of requests from customers for both new parts and reviewing the product.
Good insights. I don't think it matters if you're a small business or a large organization. Those processes need to adapt to satisfy a changing demand. That's good. I don't see any other questions, Faith, to you. And it's about time to switch anyway. So thank you, Susan. If there's time at the end and people think of questions, type in and we'll come back to Susan if time allows. So we're going to go to the second case study. It's Jim Nelson and his team, Tom and Caesar from Standard Iron and Wire Works. Jim, take it away.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So Standard Iron and Wire Works, it started many years ago in a saloon in Northeast Minneapolis by four brothers. Originally it was architectural metals, but we've expanded to contract manufacturing. Our core value stream is pretty basic manufacturing there, where we bring in some raw material, cut it, form it, weld it, machine it, finish it. And we have a pretty good, solid mix of customers in the construction and the agriculture business. So those customers are still working and part of the essential businesses. We're ISO 9015, corporate offices are here in Monticello. We have 5 manufacturing facilities, a couple here in Minnesota, one in Nebraska, one in Georgia, and one in Monterey, Mexico. Well, about 90% of our business is contract manufacturing at all of those locations. So we continue to work through this period, although some of our customers have shut down for a week, maybe 2 at a time, but most of this is continued manufacturing. We are seeing a slowdown here in second quarter and third quarter, but then we see a ramp back up after that. So what are some of the things that we are doing because of the pandemic opportunity? So we're developed a continuous improvement portfolio. We collaborated with the plant managers on some general opportunities. And then I've worked with each plant manager to hone in on some very specific opportunities, both with processes and with product. And so we're populating that out for each of the 5 plants, along with some of the corporate things. And we're putting some late training in place because we know that this is a great opportunity to get some people going. We also have the PPP, the loan to carry us over here for the next couple months. And we want to ensure that we're using some of this training with that resources to do some just-in-time and in coaching through those initial sessions. We had some of these initiatives that we were planning on in the past, but this has been accelerating them. So it's great things. And so I've invited the 2 quality managers that I have, one down in Monterey and then one here at Sauk Center, to go through a little bit of their experience in working through some of these Kaizen events that we've recently kicked off. So from that, I'm going to have Caesar, our quality manager down in Monterey, go ahead and talk about his experience down there. Okay, Caesar, go ahead.
Yes. Okay. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to explain about my experience working with Kaizen here in Standard Iron Monterey. And we start with the basis, the quality circle. plan, do, check, act. And the plan is defined training material. It's according to the team elected, using the words that they use in the working area, by that they can understand the concept. The agenda, develop case in the beta agenda. This is when start it and when finish is very clear the times, and to clear the steps and objectives weighted according to the time assigned. About the select workers for a training, the other steps inside the plan. And it's very important. The team is composed with the people from other areas, not only production, to avoid a workshop blindness. You recommended include the quality and manufacturing or maintenance too. And about the assigned areas by group, assign the step for work. The object is the all people participate. So it's necessary that several groups inside the all people, by the each person can apport some ideas for the inside to the Kaizen. And in the step to the do and the open meeting is to know the objectives, present the project leader and the plan in general. The G training is the object is aligned to the concepts, and these for all people have the same goal, continuous improvement, of course. About the execute, 3S is the S that all people know is the sort, set in order, and shine. And the capture ideas and opportunities. About that activity is the rain or ideas, is rain of the ideas. All ideas are good. Don't exclude over first time before to review with a team, right? Next slide, please. Okay, about steps check and act. And is that make the list for group about working, not working things. Sometimes the things declared like working, and these ideas can implement it into other areas. When it's not working, you can do the big list and apply the verify. It's very important to the participation for all team and verify the activities, and we can to do in the time. For example, you can to see the summary, the little table, and is a different area. One is to the all. This Excel or this table is about all cases that we are made here in Monterrey. So in total, we have 416 tasks or activities for to do. And the column do is the complete activities when we are working with a training together with all team in the day. Is the 138 in this case. Is you can to see the column check, or the other column is how is the task that we continue, but sometimes we need to assign a special support for other areas, or one special approval for the plant manager, something that. So in summary, right now in Monterrey, we are around to the 55% closet. Is a total to the 229 tasks or activities working here.
Excellent. Thank you, Cesar. So just to note, we use EOS. So in our L10, some of these get escalated up to the L10. But yes, as Cesar mentioned, 416 different explicit activities between the Kaizen event itself and the ideas and opportunities that we find during those Kaizen events. So a lot of work that continues to go on with those to help ensure that we're building a more improved environment for all those workers out there. Thanks again, Caesar. Appreciate that. Tom Borgenheimer, our quality manager in SOC Center, and Alex. So he's going to talk a little bit about our SOC Center facility. Go ahead, Tom.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. So what we focused on is an area that is very busy. We run that area it's called profiling. That area is lasers and turrets. Those machines run nearly 24 hours a day, but we did see an opportunity in the slowdown to address some 5S in that area. So we defined that focus area related to the 3 lasers and the 1 turret that we have in SOC Center. We developed a quick agenda, really focusing on those 4 machines. Simple training. One of the things that we looked at in the past that we've done training and we've not done anything with the training. We trained and then we've let it sit for months and months and months. So what we did is decided to do a quick training, about 45 minutes of Kaizen and 5S, just to give people a quick introduction to what 5S is and what the Kaizen process looks like. We did that training and then went out and we started to do the work and we focused on because of the history that we have, decided to focus on the sort, set in order, and shine only to try to get people to understand the methodology behind it before we go into the bigger and more difficult pieces of standardizing and sustaining. So you can see some of the pictures below there. The A, B, and C. A represents things that we use mostly daily, maybe weekly, but daily. The B cart, the pallet represents less than a week. Sometimes it's used, and that's the word we use sometimes, maybe weekly, it may be monthly, it may be once a year. And then the C cart, as you can see, it's a cluttered mess. You can see the amount of dust on that grinding shield there. So never used, unneeded stuff. So what I was told that by the supervisor before we started this process, that they had been cleaning. So cleaning isn't really, we didn't really gain much by cleaning. So we ended up with 9 pallets that look similar to what we see below in an area that covers 4 different machines. So it's very eye-opening for the 4 operators as we walk through that area. I think next slide, Jim. So a couple of before and after pictures. This is trying to highlight the picture on the left. You can see the excessive amount of grinding shields are hanging up on that pillar there. Hoses behind the bench. And right at the bottom of that picture, you can see a stack, actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stacks of grinding discs, enough for months and months probably. We use maybe a grinding disc or 2 a day. So you can see they're really cluttered in that area. And like I said, they had already done some cleaning in the area. The after picture, the one on the lower right there, we've taken away the things that they don't need, and really more or less tried to clean up that area. As we went through, they went through the list. I have an example of one of the lists. We called it an issue list, things we can't solve today. We put it on the list. We tried to talk through it as much as we could, but then if we couldn't do anything with it, we put it on that list. And we came up with about 20. And I think there's more because we'll continue to add to that list as we work through this process. So the operators, these are all 20-year operators, 20+ year, and it's probably a short stretch, maybe 25 years at least. The first question when we asked, what did you learn? The most senior person, I think he's actually has theirs in, said, we have too much stuff. And we reflected, all of us reflected that, well, what did the cleaning process do that we did? What they did previous to starting the event is, well, we just cleaned around the stuff that we already had that we didn't need. So it's very eye-opening for them to understand that we're tripping over boxes and things that we don't ever use them. We even have that piece of equipment anymore, but yet we cleaned around the box. So it's very, very eye-opening for these four people to understand what we're after. The other lesson we learned is the shift handoff, that we have some work to do. Like I mentioned, this area works 3 different shifts, 2 during the week, a day shift, a night shift, and then we run a weekend shift. Starts on Friday and ends on Sunday. So nearly a 24-hour operation in that area. And the 2-day shift, the 2 weeks during the week shifts, rarely see the week shift. Unless somebody happens to be working overtime, they won't see that weekend shift. So we need to engage the supervisors, because there's 3 different supervisors, to have that connection between what we've accomplished on one shift to try to bring that to other shifts, so they understand that there is a methodology behind us. And that was a lot of the conversations that these 4 employees had, is really, well, how we did this, how do we make sure that night shift or weekend shift doesn't go back and undo what we did. So, and we're still working through that scenario between the supervisors and the other shifts. We think we'll get there, because at least we're talking about it in our L10 that Jim had mentioned. So we're talking about how to bridge the gap between lack of seeing the other people and lack of knowledge that the other shifts may or may not have. The third lesson is really related to engaging the stakeholders earlier in the process. We realized that getting the other supervisors involved, similar to the previous handoff, is really making sure that they understand what we're going to do before we do it. And we didn't really do that very well this time. So we've learned that lesson, and I think next time we do it, which is going to be next Monday, we're going to attack another area next Monday, and those lessons will help us perform better next time. So that's what I have today.
Thanks.
Back to you, Jim.
Thanks, Tom. So one of the keys there, again, was getting those employees out there engaged, those operators, and they had some great feedback on how to engage and make sure that we have the handoffs appropriately. So just finally, a couple macro level lessons learned, as Tom mentioned, engage our stakeholders earlier in the process so that we understand, and then the cross-functional stakeholders. So some of those ones that in engineering, in production control and things like that. Set expectations. So understand we can get some leader standard work set up and ensure that we're following that across all of the shifts. Get competent at the basics. When I joined this company a year and a half ago, I think they knew how to spell lean, and that was about it. So it's been fun to engage them with the basics, but it's a challenge for me to stay in the basics, ensure that we have consistency and we don't just move from flavor to flavor throughout the year. And then finally, be out in the environment. Go and be in the Gemba, in the environment, learning, observing, orienting yourself, and continue to engage those resources there, because they're the ones with the most intimate knowledge and they have the best ideas out there together. So thanks again.
Terrific. Thank all 3 of you. We've got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and I think there's 3 questions. I might have a couple. I want to give you all of our time. So you finished there with engagement. How do you encourage participation by all and not just some? Any one of the 3?
And mostly it's working on the areas that are not the constraints right now. We do have some areas because of the slowdown that are less. So we are engaging with those people first. But Caesar down in Monterey, he's actually been doing this for about a year, but just kind of slowly, methodically around the whole shop area. And so that's how we actually do perform it. And we engage those resources right there and then with like the training real time to do that. Getting the cross-functional group together, that's been a challenge, and we're still working on that one. It's because everybody in some aspects have some busyness to them, and the corporate resources, the cross-functional support resources tend to be more busy than the ones out on the shop floor.
Yeah, great question. Another one on training. So you mentioned training. It was directed to Caesar, but any one of the three of it. How has COVID-19 changed how you do training? Do you still do in person? Is it all remote? Say a little bit more about training.
Caesar, why don't you go ahead? You're on mute.
Okay.
There
Yeah.
you go.
We selected the people and we explained the training, and according to the different area, maybe the concept is the workers. So we need to use the correctly words to explain that they can to engage, that they can to we understand the concept about the lean, about the case, yes.
And in general, and or you know, whoever asked that question, we are doing, you know, a lot of virtual training. However, like yesterday, I did go up to our plant up at Sauk Center to work through more specific training and coaching. It's a little more of the coaching aspect where you're taking training, engaging with those resources, and kind of helping them migrate through. We're trying to work on some video abilities to have on a cart so that, you know, I can also have that observation and then direct feedback immediately.
That's great. That's very creative. Last question, and keep it brief if you can, Jim. Any supply chain constraints that you've discovered through this process? And if so, how did you overcome those?
Not specifically. Yeah, we do have some supply chain, but our supply chain is really some big companies with a lot of, I mean, steel. So we really don't have a whole lot of problem there. Our painting side are a little bit of constraints here, but it hasn't been a big impact. Not a focus area.
Okay. Well, thanks again, all three of you. Great case study. It's refreshing to hear organizations spending some of their excess capacity, if I use that phrase, on things that mean a lot in the future, improving process and really focusing, you know, reinvesting in the business. So thank you for that. Works in business, works in any type of organization. Last but not least, Ying Sa, the CEO and managing partner of Community CPA, will offer her thoughts about how businesses can improve and survive in these times. Ying?
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, St. Paul Chamber, to organize the event. Let me share the slides right here. All right, so my name is Ying Sa. I am the CPA and the CEO of Community CPA. And two things about me, and I know quite a few of you don't know a lot about our firm. I myself, I serve on the National Taxpayer Advocacy Panel. It is a federal advisory committee to advise IRS on practice. And I, you know, one of the key point is that we do, as a panel member, bring your issues to IRS directly and have IRS improving on their operation. So that's a function of the panel. And I also recently wrote a book called Appointment with Ying at 8 a.m. When I wrote the book, and I did not know how the pandemic will impact our life, but this book really is a book to study where you can learn from the examples I gave you, a story-filled book to how to start a business. Maybe today, more than ever, for small businesses, and when you're struggling with what you have done in the past, and the social distancing make you impossible to do your business, then you can think of to be innovative, start something new. That's what I would tell our client, that as long as humans on the planet, there's always business. About Community CPA, we are home to over 9,000 business and business owners. And the firm, I grow the firm from 1998, and we literally grow the firm. I call that organic growth. because we don't buy, we don't merge, and it is all by itself, reputation and the quality of our work. We have 25 employees as present and 3 locations: Bloomington, Minnesota, Des Moines, and Des Moines, Iowa, and Iowa City, Iowa. And we speak collectively 9 different languages under one roof. And we are known for our English speaking. And because we call our way of speaking, we don't have big jargons and to confuse our small business clients. We are easy on comprehension and we clearly express what we are trying to say. So we're good with interpreting governmental regulations into understandable English, as we call ourselves. And we also are a sponsor of Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit. This is a nonprofit 501c3. If you have not heard of that, and you can Google that organization. Community CPA has been the key sponsor of this nonprofit for the past 13 years when the nonprofit started. And here is a home of the immigrant-owned businesses. And last year we had over 1,000 attendees to the event. So now we're being challenged by COVID-19. Maybe we'll transfer that whole in-person event into a virtual conference setting. We're still studying that to see how to do this. Well, the reality, I tell our clients and ourselves as well, the COVID-19 is here to stay, not just for 2 months and then maybe for 2 years. And so there's a lot of reopening thoughts is in play, and there are people, small business already open or their business is already running. So reopen is a reality, and to deal with COVID-19 as part of your organization everyday running, it will be a thing that we educate our client to how to survive and how to thrive. Some small businesses will definitely close. We already see that. And imagine when we got the PPP, the first round, small business didn't get funded. And that April is actually very critical for small business. A lot of them closed just because they didn't have the funding. But of course, now we see a better light. The second round is more for small business. And I am pretty proud of Congress to push that through to give a small business a chance to survive and possibly to thrive. So how to survive? I tell my folks that utilize the government help. So I have a very quick example for a 10 employee small business. If you have 10 employees in your business setting, you should have done emergency grants, which is the loan advance for the 10,000. You should have applied for PPP. You yourself as a business owner should already receive stimulus checks and unemployment claims. Maybe you should have already done that or stopped it because you received the PPP. But later on, when things are not going well, that is still a resources for you. And the state grants. There's nonprofit and there's nonprofit organizations also give out grants. So those are the resources for you to survive. And manage this properly, it is really part of survival skills, right? Like you dive into dive in the water, you don't know how to swim, you need to get a life-saving gadgets and to survive. And these are life-saving gadgets. And to thrive, I tell our small business owners that entrepreneurship is not just about self-employed. It is beyond that. It is about self-motivation and self-discipline. When you get disappointed and when you lose hope, and your whole organization would reflect that spirit. So you can't. You have to be positive, even if you don't have any positive card pulling out of your pocket, right? And we also say to our small business owner that you really is the person to take care of your employees. So you must you must have these values in you so you can win this invisible war and create a vision. Even if your business doesn't work right now, you felt like, well, right, and I couldn't do anything, and my business is just going to fold. But you still need to have a vision for a other format of your business going on and to thrive. These large companies are doing the following, and you can check on McKinsey.com, and they're doing remapping. They're doing IT advance. So in my thought for the general business advice for small business, I want folks to realize that the historical way of business to be successful, for small business to grow to be a big business, there's 3-4 things are important. Number one, personal touch. Your personal level customer service is always a win-win for small business, right? And the low prices and a unique product, nobody can copy you and you're unique, and your location. So those are the success for small business. Now, look at this list. A lot of it got taken away. You can't have your personal touch. You can't hug and kiss. No, maybe not kiss, but hugs. You can't hug your customer and shaking their hand be too close, right? So you're out for that one. And on the low price, can you really afford low price anymore? Because your customer number is not going to be that many, right? So low price need to be reconsidered. Unique product, okay. And hopefully that unique product is not something making people think is not clean for COVID-19. A good example would be, there is, I don't know whether here in United States, and I grew up in Canada. In Canada, the Chinese restaurant has a kind of food called a hand grab pie. It's a pie that's so baked, so loose, you grab it with your hand, then you eat it. Can you imagine under COVID-19, how you gonna eat that? You're just not gonna even go for it. So a unique product, you have to reevaluate. Location. Your location maybe is no good anymore because there's nobody walking over. Everybody is afraid of in-person contact. So maybe your back window become popular because you can design a drive-through. All right. So all of these things are just open up your mind to think outside of your small business's box, because our business are thriving, and reinvent your business based on new successful factors. So about, I just gonna use our own firm as an example because we talk about our business. And for the last 20 some years, actually exactly for the last 15 years, and the Community CPA, we are invested in the technology. So in fact, working from home, remote workforce, it is our 5-year goal, and we set in the beginning of this year when January comes. And so obviously it put the 5 years goals right into reality in March. We are all remote. And because we have been investing in technology for the past 15 years, our total investment was $2.3 million. So that is where we just happen to have that vision saved us from not being able to provide any service to our client today. And we know the importance of our clients because a lot of our clients are small businesses, right? They don't, just like Caesar with the training, and a lot of your workforce is not people who are savvy with Zooms and know how to get on to watch Zooms. So we have clients like that too. A lot of our clients don't really understand Zoom, but they do have a handheld phone. So what we do is we educate our client, and we design the portal for client to click one button, then they can see all their financials, their paychecks and everything in there. So we really try to change our way of working with our client. We can't give you a hug, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna text you, we're gonna email you, we're gonna call you much more often than we used to. Okay, we want to reduce client and employee contact because our employees are so valuable. They speak 9 different languages. Where are you going to find these people, right? So we make sure that our employees are safe. And in the office, we design an area where when client comes in, they are looking at the computer and our employee are talking in the back. So it's still not in-person contact, but yet in person, because the client came in already. They don't have to deal with their internet at home. They can just come over here, sit in front of a computer, goes, I want to talk to Ying, then I will show up, right? So that's the kind of technology we're developing. And we also are implementing what we called communication layers. So here's what I say to everyone: to video instead of to call. So if we have choice to do video, we don't call. To call instead of to text. If we can call, we don't text. But to text instead of to email. If we can text, we don't email. But to email instead of to be silent. So we will email you. We won't stay silent. So our client knows that, yes, community CPA is there. They're there for me, even though their physical office is not really working right now. We're closing the physical office. So here, we also do something different. And instead of talking to people individually, we start doing Zoom seminar at 3:00 p.m. And they're in Spanish, then in Vietnamese, in Chinese, in English. So with those webinars, and instead of meeting client one-on-one, we classify the seminars into the webinars into the title. So you can easily find, oh, how to apply for PPP loan to be forgiven. So we lay out the steps and we talk about what to do. So you can literally go to our website to check on our webinars, and you can register. And we also are having our operating Monday to Saturday. We always open on Saturday. Of course, our small business client, they don't have a day off. So we want to make that really appealing to you. We don't work Monday to Friday hours. We work Saturday, Monday to Saturday, and we work till 8:30, 5:30, and all of our employees have a company paid cell phone. So that phone is on 24/7. So that's how we make COVID-19 event speeding us up to meet the demand of today. And the small businesses right now, if they are lost in the past, they're even more lost today. So we hope that as a firm, and we will be their safety net. So whenever they're hanging on the branches and ready to fall, and we are ready to catch them and to serve them. Here's my 2 cents.
That is terrific, Ying. Thanks for sharing. We just have a minute or two for questions. And first of all, a comment somebody types in. I want to make sure that you know that they love your flower. So
all right.
thanks for wearing the brooch. No, one question, and I think it's a good one. And we'll start with, if any of the other speakers have a reaction, we'll entertain that too. And it's a good one to end on. We've heard a lot of great advice today that applies to small business or big business or any type of organization. What have you done to cope with the fact that essentially all of us are in some state of denial or anger or depression or grief? We're all still trying to absorb the change in front of us from a business perspective and maybe from a personal perspective. So in dealing with your teams and dealing with your customers, how have you dealt with the human aspect of this crisis? Any thoughts on that, Ying?
So my first foremost is it will pass. It doesn't matter it lasts for 2 months or 2 years, it will pass. So everything we do right now is to just keep your spirit up and knowing it will end, and the commercial building not go to be garbages. They will stay and they will run properly. So it is really a confidence in the future, but focus on today. Do little things to, keep your business going.
That's a fantastic answer. Do any of the rest of the speakers want to close on a quick response?
Sure.
I appreciate what Ying had mentioned there about the little things, and that's kind of what we're trying to do with these Kaizen events, and also reaching out and making sure people are focused on, some of the tasks at hand. So that keeps them engaged and keeps them motivated towards that way. And we just give them a lot of feedback, knowing that, yes, these are tough times and you're doing a great job, and continue forward. Go ahead, Susan.
The Harvard Business Review had a good article a few weeks ago too, talking about going through the grieving process, that we've lost control. I have made it an effort to just randomly call an employee at home and talk with them. And yeah, there's varying levels of, I would say, isolation. So making sure that people say, you know, ask them, how are you doing? How are you getting your groceries? What are you doing for social activity? Being very, very specific. Our daughter lives in Chicago. She's 30 weeks pregnant. I haven't seen her since January 5th. It's really tough. And you have to share that. You have to be authentic with employees and share, yes, this is a difficult time. I do agree too, you have to be optimistic, but realistically, this sucks.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to necessarily finish with that phrase, but what a great, what an appropriate way to capture it all, Susan. I think to summarize though, you got to pay attention to your business and your process and your marketplace and so forth, but you got to pay attention to your people. We're all still humans and have lives and concerns and emotions, and this does suck. And as leaders and teammates, great advice for communicating, over communicating. Pick up the phone instead of a text and email, make it personal, and we'll all get through this together. We're out of time. Thanks all three organizations for sharing some really great insights in there. Faith, thanks to you and the Chamber for co-hosting. Any final thoughts from you?
No, this was all great, and we thank you all for joining us today.
Wonderful, and thank you all for attending. I really appreciate your time today. Have a good day, everybody. Take care.
Thanks.